They sold me an alien slave. But that night, she said, I am the last alien queen. The purchase captain Marcus Vale never thought he would find himself in the shadow markets of Nexus Station, but desperation made men do foolish things. His cargo ship, the Iron Phoenix, needed repairs that cost more than 3 months of legitimate hauling. The black market dealers whispered of quick credits for those willing to transport special cargo. No questions asked. The auction house reeked of sweat and fear. Beings from across the galaxy crowded the dimly lit chamber, their eyes gleaming with greed or desperation. Marcus kept his head down, pretending to study his datapad while the auctioneer's voice echoed through the speakers. Next item. Lot 73. Zorathi female, young adult trained in domestic service. Marcus looked up despite himself. On the platform stood a figure that made his breath catch. She was tall and graceful, with pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer under the harsh lights. Her hair was silver white, flowing like liquid mercury down her back. But it was her eyes that stopped him cold. They were deep violet, ancient and knowing, filled with a dignity that the chains around her wrists could not diminish. The bidding started at 5,000 credits. Marcus watched as the price climbed, his conscience warring with his practical needs. He needed workers for his ship, people who would ask no questions about the cargo he sometimes carried. But something about this woman made his stomach turn. She did not look broken like the others. She looked like she was waiting. 10,000, he heard himself say. The auctioneer's hammer fell with finality. Marcus had just bought a person, and the weight of that decision settled on his shoulders like lead. Later, in the processing center, the clerk handed him the ownership documents with practiced indifference. Standard slave contract, the man said, his voice bored. Feeding requirements, medical needs, discipline guidelines, sign here. Marcus signed, his hand trembling slightly. The woman was brought forward, her chains replaced with electronic restraints that would shock her if she tried to flee. She said nothing, but those violet eyes studied his face with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. What's your name? He asked as they walked toward his ship. I am called Zafira, she replied, her voice melodic despite the circumstances. There was an accent there, something refined and ancient. The Iron Phoenix was a modest vessel, built for cargo hauling rather than comfort. Marcus showed her to the small crew quarters he had prepared, a converted storage room with a basic cot and sanitation unit. It was clean, but sparse. This is temporary, he said, surprising himself with the need to explain. Until I figure things out. She nodded once, gracefully settling onto the cot. You are not what I expected. What did you expect? Cruelty. Most who purchase slaves seek to break what remains of their spirit. She looked at him with those ancient eyes. You seem reluctant to even look at me directly. Marcus felt heat rise in his cheeks. I'm not in the habit of buying people. Yet here we are. That night, as the Iron Phoenix drifted through hyperspace toward the outer rim, Marcus lay in his captain's quarters staring at the ceiling. Through the thin walls, he could hear Zephyra moving about her small room. She had accepted the meal. He brought without complaint, thanked him with formal politeness but said little else. He found himself wondering about her story. The way she carried herself spoke of nobility, not servitude. Her speech was educated, refined. How had she ended up in chains on Nexus Station? Around midnight, he heard her voice through the wall, soft and melodic. She was singing, a haunting melody in a language he did not recognize. The sound was beautiful and heartbreaking, filled with longing for something lost. Marcus closed his eyes and listened, guilt gnawing at his conscience. Tomorrow he would reach the mining colonies where he planned to find work for both of them. But tonight, in the darkness between stars, he wondered if he had just made the biggest mistake of his life. The song continued, weaving through the ship like a ghost, and Marcus drifted off to sleep, with its strange beauty echoing in his dreams. Part. Our revelations in the dark 3 days into their journey, Marcus began to notice things that did not add up. Zephyra moved through the ship with a familiarity that suggested she understood technology, far beyond what a simple domestic slave should know. When the navigation computer glitched, she glanced at it with the kind of recognition that spoke of expertise. "You know ships," he said one evening as they shared a meal in the galley. She paused, a forkful of synthesized protein halfway to her mouth. "I have spent time on many vessels." "That's not what I mean." Marcus leaned forward. "When I was working on the hyperdrive coupling yesterday, you started to say something about the resonance frequency. That's not common knowledge." For a moment something flickered in her violet eyes. Fear? Calculation? Then the mask of servile compliance slipped back into place. "I observe. I listen. It is how slaves survive." But Marcus was not convinced. That night, he accessed the ship's security recordings and watched footage of Zephyra when she thought herself unobserved. She moved differently then, with the confident stride of someone accustomed to command. She examined the ship's systems with the eye of an engineer, not a servant. The next morning, he confronted her directly. "Who are you, really?" She was cleaning the galley, her movements efficient and precise. At his question, she went still. For a long moment, the only sound was the hum of the ship's engines. "I am what you purchased," she said finally. "No." Marcus moved closer, studying her face. "You're something else entirely. The way you speak, the way you move when you think no one is watching. You're no slave." Zephyra set down the cleaning cloth and turned to face him fully. In that moment, her entire demeanor changed. Her back straightened, her chin lifted, and suddenly she looked every inch the nobility he had suspected. "You want the truth?" Her voice had lost its careful subservience, becoming clear and commanding. "Very well. I am Zephyra Valthara, last daughter of the Zarathi royal house, rightful heir to the crystal throne of Zephys Prime." Marcus stared at her, his mind reeling. "Your royalty?" "Was royalty." Her expression hardened. "My people were betrayed by our own council, sold to human slave traders for mining rights to our sacred crystals. My parents, my siblings, all dead. I was kept alive as a curiosity, a prize to be auctioned to the highest bidder." The weight of her words hit him like a physical blow. He had not just bought a slave. He had bought a princess, an alien queen, whose people had been destroyed by greed. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked. "Would it have mattered?" Her laugh was bitter. "You still would have owned me. At least this way, I could observe you, determine what manner of human I had fallen to." Marcus ran a hand through his hair, overwhelmed. "This changes everything." "Does it?" She tilted her head, studying him. "You still hold my contract. I am still bound to serve. I could free you. Where would I go? My world is ash. My people are scattered or dead. Freedom is meaningless without purpose." They stood in silence, the gulf between them suddenly feeling vast. Marcus thought of all the stories he had heard about the Zarathi, their advanced technology, their wisdom. And here was their last royal heir, trapped in the belly of his cargo ship. "There's something else," Zephyra said quietly. "The reason they kept me alive was not just for auction value. I carry within me the genetic keys to Zarathi technology. With my DNA, someone could unlock the secrets of our crystal matrix drives, our quantum processors, our weapon systems." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. "That's why you were so expensive." "Yes, and now that you know, you face a choice." Her eyes locked with his. "Sell me to the highest bidder and become wealthy beyond your dreams, or help me reclaim what was stolen from my people." "What are you asking me to do?" "I am asking you to be more than just another human who sees profit in suffering." Her voice softened, becoming almost pleading. "I am asking you to help me find the scattered survivors of my race and rebuild what was destroyed." Marcus looked at this woman who was so much more than he had imagined, and felt something shift in his chest. The weight of responsibility, yes, but also something else. "Purpose, all right," he said finally. "Tell me what you need." The hunt begins. The plan Zephyra outlined was audacious and dangerous. Hidden throughout the galaxy were 12 Zarathi crystal caches, ancient repositories of technology and knowledge that her people had established centuries ago as safeguards against catastrophe. Each cache was locked with genetic keys that required royal bloodline access. The slavers know about them, she explained as they studied star charts in the ship's navigation room. That is why they have been hunting my people so systematically, but they cannot open the caches without royal DNA. Marcus traced the coordinates she had marked. These are scattered across 3 different galactic sectors. Some are in neutral space, others in hostile territory. Yes, and we are not the only ones looking for them. Zephyra's expression darkened. There is a human named Kale Draven who leads the syndicate that destroyed my world. He has been tracking down every surviving Zorathi, hoping to find one of royal blood. The name sent a chill through Marcus. He had heard whispers of Kale Draven in the underground networks, a ruthless slaver who specialized in exotic species. The man was said to be brilliant, wealthy, and completely without conscience. If he finds these caches first, Marcus asked, then humanity will have weapons capable of subjugating entire star systems. The crystal matrix technology can power ships that move faster than light without hyperspace, weapons that can crack planets, shields that are nearly impenetrable. Marcus stared at the star chart, understanding the magnitude of what they faced. So we're in a race. We are in a war, Zephyra corrected, one that began with the destruction of my people and will not end until either Draven is stopped or every Zorathi is dead. Their first destination was the Cathara Nebula, where Zephyra believed the nearest cache was hidden. The journey would take 2 weeks through dangerous space, past pirate strongholds and military patrol zones. As they prepared for departure, Marcus found himself stealing glances at his unlikely companion. She had shed the role of subservient, slave entirely now, moving with the natural authority of someone born to command. She studied tactical displays with the eye of a military strategist, analyzed hyperspace routes with the precision of a seasoned navigator. You were trained for this, he observed one evening. From childhood, she confirmed. Every royal heir learns warfare, diplomacy, science, and strategy. We were taught that knowledge is the greatest weapon and that a ruler must be prepared to fight for their people with more than just words. And now you're the only one left. Zephyra's hand stilled on the control panel she was calibrating. The weight of an entire civilization rests on my shoulders. Sometimes I wonder if it would have been better to die with the rest of my family. Don't say that. The words came out more forcefully than Marcus intended. Your people need you alive. Their legacy needs you alive. She looked at him with surprise, and Marcus realized his feelings toward her had shifted dramatically. She was no longer just cargo or even a freed slave. She was someone he cared about, someone whose pain had become his own. Why are you helping? Me? She asked softly. You could have sold me to Draven yourself and lived comfortably for the rest of your life. Marcus considered the question. A month ago, he might have done exactly that, but looking at her now, seeing the strength and nobility that slavery had not been able to break, he knew he could never have betrayed her trust. Because it's the right thing to do, he said simply. Their conversation was interrupted by an alarm from the navigation console. Marcus quickly checked the readings and cursed under his breath. What is it? Zephyra asked. We're being followed. 3 ships, staying just at the edge of sensor range. Zephyra's face went pale. He found us. Draven? He has resources everywhere. Spies, informants, tracking technology far beyond what most people possess. She moved to the weapons console with practiced efficiency. We need to lose them before we reach the cache. Marcus began plotting evasive maneuvers while Zephyra brought the ship's modest defensive systems online. The Iron Phoenix was not a warship, but it had a few surprises that might give them an edge. There, Zephyra pointed to a dense asteroid field on the navigation display. We can use the mineral interference to mask our signature. As they plunged into the asteroid field, Marcus felt the ship shudder under the stress of tight maneuvers. Behind them, their pursuers followed, gaining ground steadily. They're faster than us, he said through gritted teeth, but not smarter. Zephyra's fingers flew over the weapons console. In 3 seconds, Cut power to everything except life support. Marcus trusted her judgment and killed the engines. The Iron Phoenix went dark, drifting like dead metal among the asteroids. Their pursuers shot past, searching for a ship that had seemingly vanished. In the darkness of space, Marcus and Zephyra waited, barely breathing, until the enemy ships moved out of sensor range. "That won't fool them for long," she whispered. "Then, we better hurry." Part 4. The Crystal Cache. The Kythera Nebula was a swirling mass of ionized gas and stellar debris, beautiful and deadly in equal measure. Navigation was treacherous, with sensor echoes and radiation storms that could fry a ship's electronics without warning. It was, Marcus realized, the perfect place to hide something valuable. Zephyra guided them through the nebula with an intuition that seemed almost supernatural. She would stare into the swirling colors and point to seemingly empty space, directing Marcus to adjust course by degrees. "How do you know where to go?" he asked as they navigated around a particularly dense gas cloud. The caches were hidden using quantum resonance patterns keyed to royal bloodline genetics, she explained. "I can sense them, like a whisper in the back of my mind that grows stronger as we approach." After 6 hours of careful navigation, they found it. The cache was built into a massive asteroid, its surface scarred by eons of cosmic bombardment. From the outside, it looked like any other space rock, but Zephyra pointed to barely visible geometric patterns etched into the stone. "There. The entrance is sealed with crystalline matrices that will only respond to my touch." They suited up and took a small shuttle to the asteroid's surface. The entrance, Zephyra indicated, looked like nothing more than a natural crack in the rock, but when she placed her hand against a specific point, the stone began to glow with soft blue light. "Amazing," Marcus breathed as hidden mechanisms activated and the crack widened into a doorway. Inside the cache was a marvel of Zorathi engineering. Crystalline walls pulsed with stored energy, and holographic displays showed star charts and technical schematics in languages Marcus could not read. At the center of the chamber stood a pedestal, holding a single perfect crystal the size of his fist. "A memory core," Zephyra said reverently. "It contains the complete technical specifications for Zorathi quantum drive technology." But as she reached for the crystal, alarms began blaring throughout the chamber. The holographic displays flickered and changed, showing incoming ships. "They found us," Marcus said, checking his suit's external scanners. "Impossible. The nebula should have masked our approach. Unless they've been watching this place all along." Through the chamber's transparent walls, they could see lights moving in the nebula's depths. 3 large ships were converging on their position, their hulls bristling with weapons. "Draven," Zephyra whispered, her face pale with fear and rage. The lead ship opened a communication channel, and a voice filled with cold amusement echoed through the cache. "Princess Zephyra, how good of you to retrieve my property for me." The man who appeared on the holographic display was tall and lean, with silver hair and eyes like chips of ice. He wore an expensive suit that looked out of place in the rough environment of a slaver's ship. "Kale Draven," Zephyra said, her voice steady despite the circumstances. "You've led me quite a chase, Your Highness. But it ends now. Surrender the crystal and I might let your human friend live long enough to see you sold to the highest bidder." "I would rather die first." Draven's smile was cruel. "That can be arranged. But first I want to watch you suffer. You see, I have something that belongs to you." The display changed, showing the interior of Draven's ship. In a containment cell, Marcus saw other figures with the distinctive pale blue skin and silver hair of the Zorathi. They were thin and scarred, clearly prisoners, but alive. "My people," Zephyra gasped. "The last survivors of your precious royal bloodline. Cousins, I believe. They've been quite useful in my experiments, but they lack your specific genetic markers." Draven's expression turned predatory. "Trade yourself for them, and I'll let them live as slaves rather than test subjects." Marcus watched Zephyra's face crumble as she saw her surviving family members. He could see her resolve wavering, her desperation to save them overwhelming her strategic thinking. "Don't do it," he said quietly. "If you give him what he wants, He'll kill us all anyway. But my people will die for nothing if Draven gets his hands on this technology. On the display, Draven was growing impatient. You have 30 seconds to decide, Princess. Then I start executing prisoners. Zephyra looked at Marcus, her violet eyes filled with anguish. What choice do I have? Marcus made a decision that surprised even himself. He grabbed the memory crystal from its pedestal and held it up so Draven could see it. Here's a choice, he called out. You want this crystal? Come and take it. Before anyone could react, he smashed the crystal against the chamber wall. The explosion of released energy lit up the entire nebula like a newborn star. Part 5. The Last Stand. The destruction of the memory crystal triggered a cascade reaction throughout the cache. Ancient Zorathi systems that had lain dormant for centuries suddenly roared to life, drawing power from the nebula itself. The asteroid began to transform, its rocky exterior falling away to reveal a massive crystalline structure beneath. What have you done? Zephyra stared at Marcus in shock. Bought us time, he replied, watching as Draven's ships were forced to retreat from the energy surge. And maybe given us a fighting chance. The chamber around them was changing rapidly. Holographic displays showed weapon systems coming online, shield generators activating, and most importantly, a communication array that was broadcasting across multiple frequencies. It's a signal, Zephyra realized, studying the alien text, flowing across the displays. A call to all surviving Zorathi. The crystal's destruction activated an emergency protocol. Through the chamber's walls, they could see other asteroids throughout the nebula beginning to glow and transform. The Cathara Nebula was not just hiding one cache, it was an entire hidden fleet, sleeping until awakened by royal command. Your ancestors planned for this, Marcus said with growing admiration. They planned for the day our people would need to rise from the ashes. Zephyra moved to what appeared to be a command console, her hands dancing over crystalline controls. But I don't know how to operate these systems. Then learn fast. Marcus pointed to the tactical display. Draven's ships are regrouping. The slaver's voice crackled through the communication system, no longer amused. Clever, Princess, but you've only delayed the inevitable. Even with your ancient toys, you're outnumbered. It was true. The awakened Zorathi ships were emerging from their camouflage throughout the nebula, but they were automated defense platforms, not warships. Draven had brought a full battle fleet. We need help, Marcus said, then had an inspiration. He activated his ship's emergency beacon and began broadcasting on all frequencies. Mayday, Mayday. This is Captain Marcus Vale requesting immediate assistance. We are under attack by known slavers in the Cathara Nebula. You think anyone will come? Zephyra asked. I'm hoping. Marcus continued broadcasting. We just awakened a Zorathi defense network. Any ship willing to help us protect it will share in the salvage rights. It was a gamble, appealing to the greed of pirates and salvagers who monitored emergency frequencies. But in the lawless outer rim, the promise of alien technology was worth fighting for. The first ships began arriving within an hour. Ragtag vessels crewed by pirates, smugglers, and mercenaries who saw opportunity in chaos. They were no match for Draven's military-grade fleet individually, but together they might make a difference. This is Captain Torres of the Crimson Tide, a gravelly voice announced. What's the salvage split? Equal shares for all participants, Marcus replied, provided we survive. Good enough. Crimson Tide is moving to attack formation. More voices joined the channel as additional ships arrived. The Eclipse Runner, the Void Dancer, the Iron Maiden, a dozen vessels of various sizes and capabilities, all united by the promise of Zorathi technology. Meanwhile, Zephyra was learning to interface with the ancient defense systems. The platforms were responding to her genetic signature, but the controls were intuitive rather than technical. I can feel them, she said in wonder. It's like they're extensions of my will. The battle began in earnest as Draven's forces opened fire on the awakening defense network. Energy beams lanced through space, lighting up the nebula in brilliant displays of destruction. The improvised fleet of pirates and mercenaries engaged Draven's ships, their smaller vessels darting between the larger warships like angry insects. But the real surprise came when the Zorathi platforms began to fight back. Under Zephyra's control, they moved with perfect coordination, their crystal-based weapons cutting through Draven's shields like they were made of paper. "Impossible," Draven snarled over the communication channel. "Those systems should be thousands of years old." "Zorathi crystal technology doesn't age," Zephyra replied coldly. "It only grows stronger." The tide of battle was turning, but Draven had one final card to play. His flagship moved toward the central platform where Marcus and Zephyra were located, its massive guns charging for a final devastating attack. "He's going to ram us," Marcus realized, but Zephyra was ready. Her connection to the defense network had deepened, and she could feel the power of the entire nebula flowing through the crystalline systems. With a gesture, she directed every platform to focus their fire on Draven's flagship. The combined energy beam that struck the slaver's ship was like watching a star being born. When the light faded, nothing remained but expanding plasma and debris. In the aftermath, as the surviving enemy ships fled or surrendered, Marcus and Zephyra stood together in the transformed chamber. Around them, the awakened fleet pulsed with new life, and across the galaxy, other hidden caches were responding to the signal. "Your people will survive," Marcus said softly. "Thanks to you." Zephyra turned to face him, her violet eyes bright with tears and hope. "You destroyed the crystal to save them, not knowing if it would work. I trusted you. I trusted that your ancestors were as wise as their daughter." She smiled then, the first truly happy expression he had ever seen on her face. The Zorathi have a saying, "The greatest treasures are not found, but forged in the fires of adversity." "And what have we forged?" "A future," she replied, taking his hand. "One where humans and Zorathi stand together as equals, not masters and slaves." As they watched the stars wheel overhead, Marcus realized that his life as a simple cargo hauler was over. He was now part of something larger, something that would reshape the galaxy. And beside him stood a queen who had reclaimed her throne not through conquest, but through the courage to trust in the goodness of others. The last alien queen was no longer alone, and humanity had found an ally who would help them reach for the stars with wisdom instead of greed.